Friday, April 8th, 2022. Good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, your content capital. My name is Keaton Shaw. It's always a pleasure to have you joining us as we continue the discussions of the latest happenings here in our beloved, beautiful Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And, well, today is a good day because it's Friday. And today is always a good day to have a good day. Anyway, folks, alongside me this morning is my co-host, colleague, and good friend, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton. And today is a good day because it's Friday, unfortunately. There is some not so good fumes over Port of Spain now, probably coming from our garbage dump. These sorts of things, I think, again, yes, it's something that we've had to live with, but I do have to ask, just because we have to live with it, why do we think that it makes it okay, that it's fine to just leave it alone? And hopefully we don't have similar occurrences, maybe not to the same scale in other parts of the country, but at least with regards to the landfill at Beetham, we do have to wonder now, because the ash, from what I understand, that remains is potentially going to be concentrations of toxic materials that could leach into the soil. The smoke itself is potentially toxic materials, or at the very least artificial materials, that inhalation of that smoke is not going to be good for us. And this situation is only going to get worse as time goes on. So at what point are we going to take a hard look at the situation and see what can be done? We haven't even heard of any potential solutions that might be impractical, that might just be too expensive. We've literally just not really heard much of anything except, well, be careful, there will be bad air quality. The EMA will give us that. That's nice. But what are we going to do in the long run? Just put our heads in the sand and try not to breathe? I don't know.
Well, the smoke this morning, it seems as though the fire has continued at the Beetham dump and the winds have picked up a bit, so it's now blanketing the capital city. When I was driving into Port of Spain earlier this morning, visibility was still very much low. But interestingly, before we came on the program, it seems to have gotten a bit worse because the smell of smoke, we're actually smelling smoke right now in studio, simply at the fact it's really bad out there. So as always, we ask you to be very careful. I guess there is another benefit to wearing your mask in public right now if you're out in the capital city today. And
relocating the landfill, I'm not sure in the long run how much better that would be, because again, the smoke, the fire, the fumes, the residue of the ash of what remains, that has to go somewhere. You know, it's not as though it's going to burn and it's going to mostly disappear in a puff of smoke and we just turn a blind eye to wherever the smoke blows to. About a quarter of it, from what I understand how trash incineration works, will remain. That's not necessarily going to be healthy. It's not as though we have a really good space that's going to be far away from any residential area, city area, place where humans work, or even where we have nature reserves. So where would we relocate it to? So this is not a simple problem.
There is a theory. There's a theory that there are natural gas reserves actually lying deep below the Beetham landfill.
That would be ironic.
Now I'm putting that theory out there, but I can't say that I have evidence to prove that it is anything more than a theory. But if that is the case, and I'm wondering if there's any possible way that we could explore that theory any further to prove its doubt or its existence, that is such a benefit, but as you pointed out, ironic, isn't it?
Ironic, yes. But to me, as much as everybody is on carbon emissions and carbon emissions and carbon emissions, listen, that war in Ukraine, that is wiping away carbon emission goals for years, just because the reality of the situation is what it is. Meanwhile, we have a major problem with trash, with plastics especially. Plastics especially in this country, on our beaches, roadways, waterways. And at the end of the day, this is leaching into our lungs. I think there's a study out that I saw a couple days ago where it more or less suggests humanity is going to have a significant amount of microparticles of plastic in their lungs that we just don't know. And the long-term effects of this, we probably won't fully understand for a couple of years.
Well, not only that, but also we have to bear in mind as well that with all that's happening now throughout the world, you pointed out Ukraine, which has not only skyrocketed the price of oil, which in turn has delayed the transition to greener energy and green energy goals, especially after COP26. But when you take a look at Trinidad, you mentioned we have a serious problem in relation to plastics, in relation to trash. Well, I have good news for you, my friends. The new local government minister, Faris Arawi, has indicated that next month there is going to be a national cleanup exercise as well as a survey that's being done. So throughout the country, starting from next month, there is going to be a national cleanup exercise, which I think we've had in the past. It has bared some fruit, because at the end of the day, say what you want, if this plan comes to fruition and this plan works well, and I'm all for it, excellent work on the part of local government and by extension, the government. But I always say that in relation to our serious trash problem, whilst the government has to deal with the recycling aspect, as well as how are we going to eliminate this trash, how are we going to treat and get rid of this amount of garbage, especially for a small nation, citizens in their own way do not help the situation. And I not only am I trying to be fair, but I'm also trying to be realistic.
I never looked into it. I'm not entirely sure why, but there was a time Coke was in glass bottles. And glass bottles...
You can still get glass bottle Coke.
Yes, I know, but how much of it is plastic bottles? How much of the plastic corks, do we see, or the bottles lying around? Plastic bottles, yes, as convenient and as cheap as they are one of the major problems, and styrofoam food containers are one of the other major problems that we did make a push towards. It seemed as though it was a bit of an incomplete initiative. You're only tackling one and not the other. But plastic bottles is too big of an issue, in my opinion. And yes, we could clean things up, but you're basically taking the trash. A cleanup is taking the trash from being scattered all over the place and putting it in a landfill. Right? So that's half good. Maybe even 3/4 good. But you still have a whole set of plastic in the landfill.
Which is what I completely understand. That's why I pointed out that the government, I mean, there have been plans for so long to establish a recycling plant.
Yeah.
Right? At least run...
Now, to be fair, recycling plastic is very, very difficult and very expensive.
So, all right, we're being fair. But there are companies that are doing it, private companies at least. Whether or not they are collaborating with the government, that's a totally different thing. But I know that the government initially had plans in order to establish a recycling plant. That has not happened. And I'm not talking about because of COVID-19. I'm talking about I'm not sure why it happened. But adding to that, even more so, private entities are now taking initiatives in order to ensure that they utilize more eco-friendly material in their products. For example, there is one major beverage manufacturing company located here in Trinidad, right, in Valsine. I won't call the name, but now you know where it is, right? They have decided to, and it's quite a while now that they've put this in place, to stop using plastic straws.
Yeah.
They're going to start using paper-based straws.
Yeah.
But my thing is, I'm all good for this. I'm happy. Even though sometimes I wonder if paper is really an alternative, because how do you get to paper? And then the recycling process for paper as well. But they're using paper straws, and it's poor quality. It's absolutely poor quality. You drink from it once, and the straw, I kid you not, it seems as though it melts. It melts.
I think drinks with straws, we do need to maybe find just some
paper
alternatives
straws.
to that.
But hold on. There was another initiative, which I don't know if it's continued. Most recently, I haven't noticed, where other companies were now using forks that were made out of, they were recyclable forks, right? I don't think they were made out of wood, actually. I think they were made out of bamboo. I'd like to assume that they were made out of bamboo and not wood, because again, cutting down trees is not really helping the situation as much, although they're trying to reduce plastic waste that goes into the environment. But then again, it was absolutely terrible. You could barely pick up anything with a fork. The fork, the prongs of the fork were not sharp enough in order to hold the food. And it actually even had a taste, so that when you were putting food in your mouth, right, you were getting that taste.
I think those sort of things could be worked out over time, because you have to figure out a way to manufacture the fork that will have all the qualities you need, but you don't want to do things that, for all intents and purposes, gives it artificial chemicals and elements that turns it into just a slightly worse version of the plastic fork or the plastic straw. I do wonder if now we need to move away from disposable. So I know somebody I know, she has a metal straw in her purse. Now, obviously, guys don't have purses, but basically the concept would be to carry your own fork or to carry your own straw, especially. I think straw especially, so that it's not trying to be disposable, because that's the problem, I think, with the straw. If it's disposable, you can't put a whole set of resources into a single straw. We won't have enough trees at the end of it to keep up with that sort of manufacturing. You have to minimize the amount of material you use if in a disposable product. So instead of trying to continue with the cultural norms that we remember from yesterday, every pack of juice comes with a disposable straw, etc., maybe we have to change that now and say, well, every child in his lunch kit will have his or her own straw.
And the thing is, not only in my opinion is that a bit more hygienic, where you have your own straw, you're able to go wash it at the end of the day and utilize it. You can even wash it immediately after using. Each individual having their own straw will also allow for the reduction of us, all right, let me take a sip of your drink, same straw, that sort of thing. Although it could still happen.
Yeah.
It could still happen.
Well, yeah, that's up to the
individual.
Yeah.
But I'm stating that also helps the situation, and you could go purchase individual straws now. They are available for purchase.
The other thing too is that if I am a businessman, now it's not going to be easy for the transition, but it might put the straw manufacturers and the fork manufacturers potentially out of business, because their manufacturing process now maybe you put more effort into the individual product because it's a long-term product or not a short-term product, so it'll change the face of that small corner of manufacturing. However, for someone who is now having to be a food vendor or selling small packs of juice, now it changes my economics differently. Now I don't have to package a straw. Now I don't have to supply a fork. So it makes my logistics easier.
Yeah, but a bag of 100 straws costs about $10. It's probably more, but let's just say it's $10. But it does help.
It adds up when you are the manufacturer.
Exactly.
When you are Nestle or you are Orchard, it adds up for you. It doesn't add up for the household. It adds up for you.
Exactly, which is why that company has decided to take that decision in order to put paper-based straws. But even more so in the hotels across Trinidad, at least some of the major hotels, the major brands, they were utilizing that as well. Mm-hmm. But I think we've also been, as a society, rather afraid to move away from the thought of plastic. For example, let's use one example. Do you remember long ago, and even more now, it's still relevant now, but more so long ago, in every mother's kitchen, there was a bag of bags. Yeah. There was this big bag full of plastic bags, right? Well, ever since a major supermarket chain decided to stop supplying plastic bags for that reason, you probably don't have that as much as before. But when that major supermarket brand initially made the decision, right, to do that, they indicated that it was simply due to the plastic. And we're trying to move away from plastic and for the environment. People had the thought that it's actually because of the cost. This company is making so much money, but they now want to take away plastic bags because they don't want to incur the cost. The issue with that, I think, is we as Trinidadians, with anything that is taken away from us, anything that is taken away, whether it be for our good, or whatever reason it may be, we have an issue with it.
People do not want to lose their conveniences. Look, the war in Ukraine is an interesting example of this, because Germany is all for doing anything, it seems, right? They're very supportive for measures to stop the war. They also don't want to have to pay more for energy. So it's weird. It sends two signals to the politicians. Yes, they are outraged. But then when their own pocketbooks are concerned, there is a dichotomy there that hasn't been fully worked out. So It's the same thing locally. At the end of the day, if we really as a society wanted to get rid of plastics, we could have. If we really wanted to get rid of styrofoam containers, we could have, but we don't. At the end of the day, I don't understand, is brown paper bags that much more expensive? Because the appeal, honestly, is at least when it, degrades, it's going to be a lot more biodegradable, not as damaging as a plastic bag.
As you pointed out, conveniences, my friend. Conveniences. We have become so accustomed to these things. They have made life easier. A plastic bag was great technology. It came in very handy.
Cheap.
Right? It was cheap. It's affordable. You can, because it's so cheap. It was very much abundant.
Here's an interesting thought as well. One of the reasons why we need green energy, whether you are a proponent for it or not, at some point oil will run out. So we need other forms of energy, right? Well, plastics is manufactured from what?
Petrochemicals.
Exactly. So at some point, the plastics manufacturing will just run out. It's way down the line. But, we're going to have to figure it out sooner rather than later. And since we are potentially choking on the fumes of our own plastic trash being burned, maybe we in Trinidad and Tobago could consider figuring or starting to figure out part of that solution sooner rather than later.
Well, whatever happened to the theory, and I don't think it's theory, it has been proven, that burning plastic and inhaling that smoke increases your risk of cancer. There are serious health risks beyond just inhaling smoke. It's the repercussions that come afterwards.
It's two things. It's the smoke and then it's the plastic. So it's like times two. Because wood burning is one thing. Getting plastic microparticles in your lungs is another thing. Plastic smoke, I don't even want to think about it.
Well, you don't have to think about it, my friend. You can just walk out the
door.
No,
I just
walk out,
Yeah, that is true.
And I often enjoy, I often enjoy in the morning when it's very, very cool, before the sun has fully awakened from its slumber. I enjoy putting on the window and taking in that nice cool breeze, that wind hitting you. Minus when you reach, of course, the Beetham dump. You put up your window, and then after that, you could put on your window once you reach Portsmouth Bay again. But I've enjoyed that. And yesterday and this morning, I could not do that.
I think people need to understand. It smells bad, right? When things smells bad, they smell bad for a reason. You're inhaling particles of whatever is smelling bad. That's how you smell it. That is going into your body in a small way. But I just like to point out, that can't be good. That can't be good.
It's just, forgive me, my friend.
It seems obvious, but,
No, it's not. What is obvious is just how you said it. You said, when things smell bad, they smell bad for a reason.
Yeah, they smell bad for a reason. They smell bad for a serious reason, right? And these sorts of things, over time, probably isn't good for you. We don't fully understand how cancers form, but why are we trying to, improve the odds of getting random chance, some cancer somewhere? Just saying.
Anyway, let's just shift on a little bit. Moving on, well, as we're speaking about energy, let's speak about the blackout that occurred on February 16th. The Minister of Public Utilities, Marvin Gonsalves, confirmed to the media yesterday that he did receive a copy of the report. Now, whilst he cannot reveal details of the report, and a copy of the report cannot be made public without the Prime Minister's permission, which is rather unfortunate, need I say, the Minister has indicated that there were no culprits, in other words, no one individual will be held liable or is liable in the blackout that occurred. And I quote from the Minister on February 18th, he made a statement to Parliament stating, "A short circuit fault occurred on a 12,000 volt overhead line. The lines crossed under 220,000 volt transmission overhead lines, which connect the TNTEC system to the Trinidad Generation Unlimited power station in Labray. Yesterday, he said there was nothing in the report which surprised him." So, the statement he made on February 18th to Parliament, he just made a statement yesterday stating that there was nothing in the report that surprised him. But he did not confirm, nor did he change any previous statement he made before receiving that report. So that in itself is very interesting. But to me, he's stating that he would not be able to reveal its details without the go-ahead of the Prime Minister.
He said, not surprising. He didn't necessarily say all of his expectations. You know what some of his expectations are, the technical reasons why.
Well, what he was hoping for anyway.
Right. So the thing is, okay, sure, nobody flipped the wrong switch, unscrewed the wrong screw, nobody cut the wrong cable, whatever. Fine. But the question has to be asked, is this a vulnerability that TNTech was aware of? Did they have an acceptable, reasonable solution for it? Because it could have been that the solution was very impractical, right? We don't know. I'm not an electrician. But assuming that they could have had one, then we have to ask who was responsible for the decision to implement it or to not implement it. And therein lies somebody who, technically speaking, could be held responsible for the blackout.
Well,
it's a lot of ifs. There's a lot of things that you have to check off, but it's not unreasonable.
You see, the thing is, an independent investigative panel that was appointed by Cabinet is one thing. Just, you said you're waiting for the Prime Minister's permission before details of the report can be released. I don't want details from the report. I want the report in its entirety, without any edits, without any exclusions,
or redactions,
anything which can manipulate the information as the primary information of the report. I do not want that manipulated in any way. I'd like that report to be made public, and I'd like the citizens now to understand the situation for themselves, because though I'm not saying we should not believe the Minister of Public Utilities, and though I'm saying that we should not believe the Prime Minister, they are those who hold office, they are our elected leaders. At the end of the day, we give them that respect. But let's be realistic at the same time. How much do you trust the government? And for that sense, how much do you trust the opposition? It goes hand in hand. The point is, regardless of who is in power, there is a great level of mistrust. And I'm just stating that, unlike reports that have come before us, in which we've only been privy to certain transcripts of those reports, I'm truly hoping that this time we get the entire document, that it be made public, and we don't have to wait too long before getting the permission of the Prime Minister.
I don't understand why politicians think it's a good idea to keep things close to the vest and to control information. I understand why it is sometimes a useful strategy, but usually this is used with things like national security, strategic goals and plans, and when you have...
Well, in a sense, this is national security.
Yes and no. Yes and no, because there are certain things, again, with regards to the management and responsibility, was everybody doing their jobs? Because at the end of the day, go back to what Farley Augustine said, Chief Secretary THA, perceived conflict is just as risky as actual conflict. Well, if that is to be true, perceived cover-ups are just as risky as actual cover-ups.
Well,
just as risky.
Two things. First of all, in relation to this entire blackout, why do we have to await the permission from the Prime Minister for the report to be made public? Why? Because the technical... Why does the appointed minister, the minister who was appointed by the Prime Minister, has to wait for his permission before releasing this report? An independent report.
Here's the irony. First of all, because Cabinet controls communications, that's why the individual ministers are very, very limited on what they say.
Rather unfortunate.
Very limited on what they say. Now, he has revealed the technical details of what happened. The national security considerations are what?
My friend, he has not revealed any details.
No, what did he say?
On February 18th, he said that in Parliament. That's not from the report.
Okay. So he said that in Parliament. Those are technical details of how it could happen. He said he's not surprised. So if we take him at his word, the technical details of why it happened potentially have been revealed. Those are the things that you worry about for national security, so that it can be replicated by people with bad intentions. So you don't want to reveal those willy-nilly.
But adding to which, why would you give or tried to give a technical reason 2 days after if you knew that you were going to have an independent panel give it? Because now what it tells me is that not only were you trying to stand up before this report was to be made public, or before you handed this report, but now that you stated that in Parliament on February 18th, we do not have any other alternative to the reasoning you gave.
Well,
so therefore, we're not entirely sure what you stated on February 18th is what is in the report. All you've indicated is that it doesn't surprise you. What does that mean to me as a journalist and a citizen?
Let me frame that. Him giving the reason earlier o'clock, without the reporter follow-up, makes that reason look suspicious. It just does. Because it makes it look like you want us to focus on this and not ask other questions. Whereas, if you give a preliminary reason that you think, that you estimate, that could be the cause, right? And then you do give us the report after, well, there's no suspicion on that initial statement anymore. So it's the actions now that color the situation very
also adding to
differently.
This, we were speaking about why we need the Prime Minister's permission. Information and communication is controlled directly from Cabinet. That's why ministers have a very little leeway in terms of what they can make public, which unfortunately, and I must say this, is really signs of an authoritarian system of government.
Well, the opposition is similar, not exactly the same, but similar.
But I don't want to go into that talk. I don't want to open a new can of worms, and I don't want to have that debate this morning. All I will ask, my final point on this, and I've said it multiple times on this platform, what is, forget right now oil, gas, forget right now cybersecurity and whatnot. All that's important. That's everything that we spoke about there comes down to one thing. What is the most valuable resource in the world and the most important resource in the world? Information. Information holds the power. Information is key. It is the most valuable and powerful resource in the world. That in itself, if you can manipulate information, you can manipulate data. If you can manipulate data, you can manipulate absolutely anything, and you could have control over it. Minus perhaps natural disasters or natural instances, but even then, I'm pretty sure we try,
2/3 of Russians think that the war is justified.
2/3 of Russians think that there isn't a war, and they think that it's just a military operation. And that goes down to what? Controlling the media, which is what? Controlling information. Ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case. We'll take a break here on Talking Point. When we return, we welcome our guest this morning.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Say hello to the newest way to access eye care support. Say hello to Ferrera Optical Virtual Care. For the first time in TNT, you can now connect from the convenience of your home with our team of eye care professionals online. Need guidance in a vision problem or adapting to new eyewear? Book a virtual visit via FerreraOptical.com using our smart scheduler, and we'll take care of the rest. Ferrera Optical Virtual Care, connecting with you wherever you are.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Former Government Minister and Member of Parliament under the United National Congress, Vasant Bharath, has stated that a political alternative is necessary. Now, Mr. Bharath has held 2 forums with concerned citizens from various sectors across Trinidad and Tobago, which runs on the state of affairs of Trinidad and Tobago. It's being dubbed as Friends of TNT. Now, joining us this morning to speak about a political alternative and what we might see unfolding, the results of these forums, is Mr. Vasant Bharath. Good morning, Mr. Bharath, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, good morning, Keaton. Good morning to your listeners.
Well, Mr. Bharath, what we saw, let's take a walk back a little bit. What we saw in Tobago for the THA elections in December, the first question that came to my co-host and myself was the possibility of this translating into another alternative for a political entity within Trinidad and Tobago. Now, we're seeing the PDP enter our shores. They're launching their party in Trinidad and Tobago on Sunday. But now we're hearing from you that you are also looking at a political alternative. You've had the support from former cabinet ministers. You've had the support of those who are held in high esteem in various sectors throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Are we now seeing you building up and leading up to that political alternative, or is this just a start to try and get a better understanding of the opinions and thoughts of certain individuals as to where we are at and possibly what we need?
Okay, so I think what happened in Tobago a few months ago indicates to a large extent the level of dissatisfaction that people feel with the kind of politics in Trinidad and Tobago. So although it happened in Tobago and was specific to Tobago, I think the same level of apathy and indifference exists in Trinidad and Tobago. Unfortunately, people feel almost imprisoned by the fact that they either vote for one or the other parties, and the narrative from both parties generally, but particularly, say, for example, the current opposition, is that third parties will split their votes and cause the PNM to win. Well, that's a time-worn, old rhetoric that is really an insecure narrative because the opposition has refused to do its work over the last 7 years and really have, in refusing to do that work, they've not been able to engender the support of many outside of its space. So when those outside of its space has an opportunity to look elsewhere, that's what actually happens. They move their vote from an organization that they feel that they have to hold their noses and vote for, and they vote for something else. Now, having said that, what I'm doing with these forums is it's not political in nature. So I don't want in any way for it to come across that this is a political forum, because what I'm attempting to do is to promote voices of people who have an opinion, who have a perspective on a particular subject matter, but ordinarily speaking will not have the opportunity to voice those opinions, simply because they will not be given time on a public platform. And in many instances, they don't want to be involved if you look, for example, at the last meeting that we had, which was early February.
February 5th,
we had people
yes.
like Stephanie Pemberton talking about entrepreneurship. We had Raquel Moses, who is the CEO of the Climate Control Accelerator in the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
We had Gavin Hira talking about crime. We had a former national goalkeeper, Kelvin Jack, talking about the importance of sport. We had a young attorney called Jonathan Bagan talking about human trafficking. We had the president of the Agricultural Society talking about the development of the agricultural sector in Trinidad and Tobago. We had a guy called Dr. Hanif Benjamin who spoke on a very important issue of mental health, particularly in today's world. We had a young man speaking about housing for millennials. So, we had a cross-section of people of different backgrounds, different races, different perspectives, just coming to voice an opinion that would not normally be heard by the ordinary public. And the purpose of it is really to get the population to sit back and think, hang on a second, there are people in this country who do have solutions to some of our problems. There are people in this country who do have a voice, and they can actually lend to the national discourse and to national development. And we don't just have to listen to Dr. Rowley or Mrs. Bissessa or to any of the people attached to those two leaders, but there are alternatives. And so this is really what I'm trying to do, to create this voice, so that the population understands that there is actually hope out there.
Well, Mr. Barr, Sean Michael Small here, of course, that's Talking Points. I do have to ask, what is your eventual long-term goals? Because I agree with you on having greater discussions. That's one of the things that we hope to promote with this platform here, this show. But having the discussions is good, but is there any other mechanisms you might be looking at to maybe promote the content of the discussions, to push forward the ideas?
So basically, we started in February. The second one is taking place on Saturday at the Center of Excellence at 4 o'clock. What I am hoping coming out of this is that people will become more enlightened, and I'm talking about not necessarily just the listening population, but the people who are actually speaking as well. They'll become more enlightened about the circumstances in Trinidad and Tobago. We're trying to bring like minds together. We're trying to bring people who are conscious about where the country can potentially go and what's actually happening unless we don't put a brake on what's taking place in the country. We'll see what evolves out of that. I mean, at the end of the day, we're hoping to have maybe 3 or 4 of these forums over the next few months. And at the end of that period, we'll make a decision. There may be people amongst that 30 or 40 people who have spoken on the platforms who want to have this evolve into something else. There'll be people who are listening to these young people who may come out and say, we need to do something. I've listened to X, Y, and Z, and they make a lot of sense. I believe that we can work with a group of people like this in a political entity. So right now there is no end goal. For me, it is a mentoring process for young people. Mm-hmm. Not everybody is very young, but most people would be names that are on the fringes. They've been involved in work that is not necessarily political in nature, but it affects communities and so on. So we'll see where it leads. But at this juncture, I'm not going to be premature to say this is good. This is going to lead to a political party. What I can tell you is that enough people in this country are completely and totally fed up of what passes for politics in Trinidad and Tobago, because ultimately it's not improving the quality of lives of most people. In fact, the quality of life of most people in Trinidad and Tobago is deteriorating on a day-by-day basis because of the issues, and you all know it, it's laid out there in front of all of us on a daily basis, the issue of food prices, the issue of healthcare, the issue of infrastructure, the issue of education and how we're going to treat with a new education curriculum for the new world of work. All of these things are things we're just kicking down the road, and we're just almost looking at the future with blinkers on, so that it only relates to the next election, whether it's the local government election, and we're going to put stuff out there to railroad the other party, and we're going to bus mark to railroad the other party, and it's election to election, whether it's local government election, whether it's general election, and unfortunately, the citizens feel almost imprisoned, that the only opportunity they have to exercise their voices is when an election comes around, because there's no other way they have a voice. So what this forum is doing is providing that voice for a lot of new people to come out and feel comfortable about expressing a viewpoint.
Well, Mr. Barrett, you've indicated that you're not going to be premature in stating that this will lead to something beyond what it is right now. You've also indicated that what you're doing is that you're presenting a platform and a forum for those individuals who have played a role in society, but perhaps they haven't been given that platform to express wholly and truthfully their concerns. I'm wondering two things. If this is really for citizens to see the alternatives, to have a better understanding, are these forums open to the public? Does the public have the opportunity to come themselves and express their concerns or to listen to what is being stated? And two, as I pointed out, you said you're not going to be premature in stating that this is going to go beyond what it is. But also, are you going to completely rule it out, or is it that you're just stating that let's see where it goes right now? We're here, we're having this, we're not entirely sure what's going to happen. I'm not going to jump to any conclusions, but as you said, you're not being premature, but also at the same time, you haven't directly ruled it out?
No, so I haven't ruled any possibility out, but I don't want in any way to compromise the group of people who will be speaking on these platforms so that they will have political labels on them. Mm-hmm. So I just want to make that very clear.
Yes.
The second issue is, yes, it's open to the public, and as I said, it's at the Center of Excellence starting at 4 o'clock on Saturday, finishing at 4 to 6. And it is open to the public because it is important that we get public engagement in what we do, because the purpose of these forums is to highlight, as I said, issues that relate to people's lives on a daily basis. Many of them are fringe issues. For example, on Saturday, we have Mr. Darren Sandy, who is the founder of the 2 Cents Movement. Mm-hmm. And the 2 Cents Movement provide a tremendous outreach program to secondary schools, primary schools. As you know, they've also developed the spoken word competition, which is a national poetry slam, the secondary school spoken word intercall, and primary and national primary school spoken word. He's going to be speaking. We have Mr. Kiran Singh, who is president of the Greater San Fernando Chamber of Commerce. He's doing some opening remarks, and presumably he will speak on what's happening in the business community. We have a very exciting presentation by someone. It's 2 people. It's Miss Sajina Kadir and also Superintendent Pear of the TTPS, because there's been a collaboration that took place, I think it was November of last year. It's called the Community Justice Clinic, and it's a collaboration between the Law Association and the TTPS, doing work in at-risk communities.
Mr. Barrett,
yes, go ahead.
Let me just cut you there, and I'm glad that you've indicated that yes, this is open to the public, and I'm thanking you for sharing that information that you just did. But I in trying to get down to the point of this entire discussion, let me ask you your opinion now. You've mentioned that the opposition have failed to do their job over the last 7 years. You've also indicated that people feel a bit stifled because they only feel that they have, well, I suppose, the lesser of 2 evils between the current sitting government and the United National Congress when it comes to an election. With that, in your opinion, is the time in Trinidad and Tobago, is it right now for another force to emerge? Is there a need for another alternative? Because historically speaking, Trinidad and Tobago has always been a two-party system of government where you have two major parties going up to election. It's often been divided due to racial prejudice, and I don't shy away in stating that at all. That's the reality of the situation. But now considering the plight of Trinidad and Tobagonians, what we're facing, what we're experiencing, I mean, is now more than ever the right time to have a third alternative, a third party that ceases to, practice racial issues or racial narratives and try and actually have an identity that is TNT and work for the benefit of all citizens and actually focus on the issues at hand?
Well, there's certainly a need. Whether or not it's going to be successful is a different story, Keaton. But the country certainly needs competent people at the wheel. We can no longer throw our eggs in the basket of race where we just appoint anybody because the leader of each party proposes a particular person, a particular constituency. We have to vote for that person because that party has been nominated by the party. And then that party gets into government, and the people who are representatives have never done anything in their lives. So they're poor representatives to start with, and they're even poorer ministers of government. And who suffers at the end of the day? It is the population and the citizens, because the simplest of things, which is the delivery of services like water and electricity and welfare grants and all sorts of things, but basic things that are important to human survival. As a country, we are robbed of those services simply because of the incompetence of the people in charge. And I think, we have to mature beyond that as a population if we're not going to allow the rest of the world to bypass it. So if you look at what's happening in Jamaica, you look at what's happening in Barbados, as two examples, where race does not play a part, you will see that those two countries are forging ahead. Last year, Jamaica was the most successful stock exchange in the world. You see what's happening in Barbados with the kind of investments they're attracting. Mm-hmm. Look at what's happened in Trinidad and Tobago over the last 7 years. Very little has happened in terms of foreign direct investment. In fact, there's been capital flight. Look at what's happening with all of our institutions. And let me say that what's happening in our society today is not really because of the last 7 years. So I don't want to be naive and I don't want to mislead people. It has really been a convergence of economic and other mismanagements that's been in the making for decades. And we've now had a confluence of it where we're just hoping, thank God, thank God Russia, I'm saying this, tongue-in-cheek, thank God Russia has invaded Ukraine. Otherwise, we would not have had any new revenues coming in. It is a result of that geopolitical catastrophe that we have benefited because of oil and gas prices. Otherwise, we would have had no new forms of revenue coming in for the last 7 years. We've had negative growth in this country for 7 consecutive years, with no hope in the future of it correcting itself. So the point I'm making is it is absolutely needed, but unfortunately the specter of race will always come in because our leaders will ensure that they bring up the bogey of race at election time.
Well, Mr. Barath,
and that's it's regrettable.
That's an interesting point there, or rather, what is interesting about it is the further implications, because we know in other parts of the world what are political entities judged by, their policy positions, their ideology. Do we like what they have to say? And what they say is usually in line with their political identity. In TNT, policy positions just tend to be one of convenience. It's more or less both parties or all parties are racing to say the same good things the same way each time. Everybody is for everything. Every party, every politician is for everything, against nothing. There's no stance taken. There's no actual policy on how to move the country forward. I do have to ask, if this initiative is not potentially a political party, or at least not yet, could this loose coalition of members, of speakers, could it potentially be considered something to like a think tank that potentially could give policy positions and propositions for the public to now maybe have a better understanding of what is possible for our future and what we should be asking for, as opposed to just saying, well, we want things to be better. Have some definite goals in mind or initiatives in mind.
So that's an excellent perspective, because that's exactly what we're hoping to do. We're hoping that by citizens looking at these alternative voices speaking on this platform, it'll get citizens to understand what is possible in Trinidad, and then hopefully force our politicians to come to those conclusions by thinking about things differently. So in other words, it will almost empower our citizens to understand that we can be better, that there is better out there, that we have very bright young men and women in Trinidad and Tobago who really may not want to get involved in the front line of politics, but they have a voice, they have an opinion, they have a perspective, they have a level of expertise that could help us, and then force our politicians, if necessary, to engage these people in proper dialogue, not cosmetic, not just window dressing, but to engage them in proper dialogue to determine how we can take the country forward. You know, I was talking, just before you guys, I came onto this phone, I was talking to a man who is involved in exporting his own brand of chocolates to the United States. He's also exporting peppers to the United States. And he's telling me at every step of the way there's bureaucracy involved in Trinidad and Tobago that makes it sometimes uncompetitive for him to be able to do what he's doing right now and make any money in it, simply because of the bureaucracy involved. Why is that? Well, after so many years, after so many decades, why is it that we
Mr. Barack,
simple thing?
So many years, so many decades, but new initiatives, new political initiatives tend to fall by the wayside when they don't see initial success or short-term success, particularly political parties, but any sort of initiative I could think of. Maybe I'm wrong. Is this initiative one where you and those who are with you will at least commit to it and stick to it in the long run, even if you don't get that initial support from the public?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. It is not being put together out of political expediency to form a political party. This is all about agitating for change and presenting the population with people who can actually make a difference to the quality of their lives. And this is an ongoing process. It is not geared or meant to fight any local election or any general election. It is really just putting it out there so that the citizens can make the decisions themselves. Ultimately, guys, it is the people of the country who will determine whether they want to vote for UNC, whether they want to vote for PNM, or whether or not it is time for them to make a difference in their lives and do something else. There's no amount of pushing and shoving you can do and forcing people to do anything until they are actually ready. You know what they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Well, this is part of it. It's just showing people that there are different things that can be done, and they can be done in different ways, and they can provide a better quality of life for the people.
Mr. Barrett, that's all well and good, and I'm glad that you pointed out it's when the students are ready, the teacher will appear. Too often has that been the case here in Trinidad. And as we conclude the discussion, and I want to thank you for joining us this morning, I just have to ask your opinion on this. How is it now? You said empower citizens to let them see that there is a way, there are alternatives. We can deal with this situation and we can deal with these issues. I mean, that's all well and good. That's one thing. But in the creation of these alternatives and perhaps allowing for the discussion to create new policy, how is it now that you will coerce citizens into empowering themselves? How do citizens empower themselves? Because at the end of the day, I always say that, yes, we can blame our politicians, we can blame our leaders, we can blame those in office, but we seem to forget that we too have a role to play, and often or not, we neglect that role while focusing on others. How is it now that we try to change that mindset?
Yeah, so Keaton, the two things that changes people's minds are either pain or pleasure, right? And at the end of the day, there is no pleasure in Trinidad and Tobago at this point in time. Most people are suffering grief and they're suffering pain. And generally when people suffer grief and they suffer pain, they look to see how they can change their circumstances. And sometimes takes a long period of time, but many times it's like flicking a switch. Suddenly people realize, look, what we have been doing from time immemorial, from the time of our grandparents, is not working for us, and it will not work for our children. And so therefore, let us at least have a look at something else. Let us at least open our minds, and I'm not naive to think that the entire population will suddenly get up tomorrow morning and change their mind. But all we are hoping to do by this is to enlighten some people so that, they can look at alternatives in their lives and look at and understand that there are more possibilities than what exists currently.
Mr. Barra, thank you very much for joining us on Talking Point this morning. We appreciate you sharing your opinions and thoughts and more information on Friends of TNT. Keep well, sir.
Great. All right, guys. Thanks again.
All the best. Mr. Vasan Bharat, part of the Friends of TNT, he's leading that discussion and leading that forum. As he's indicated, it is open to the public at the Centre of Excellence on Saturday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Folks, WSN now breaks for news on the hour.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital. Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think act and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back to Talking Point. Just before we continue with this morning's proceedings, I'd like to say a very good morning to Miss Janice Lawrence Clark, who was reading the program this morning. Good morning, Miss Clark. We hope you're having a great day, and we hope you have a great day ahead, as well as a wonderful weekend. And thank you for your viewership and support. But your question, the question that you posed was very much on point. And Miss Janice Lawrence Clark's questions: why give the Minister, Gonzalez, the report, then muzzle him? All this grandstanding. One, there'll be an investigation. Two, the Minister is not privy to the investigation panel. Three, you tell Trinidad and Tobago the investigation is completed. Four, the Minister, let's tell the Minister, let's inform the Minister, let's give him the report. Five, the Minister can't tell the Trinidad and Tobago because he didn't get permission from the Prime Minister. Why was the Minister given, along with the results of the investigation, the permission along with the talking points so that he could address Trinidad and Tobago once received? All this inefficiency, so we could wait and speculate, and we struggle to keep our heads and our hearts above this sludge of gross, inefficient mismanagement. Absolutely on point what she's stating. I mean, all this wonderful publicity about we're having an investigation, we're getting it done, the investigation is completed, we were given the copies of the report, but I'm muzzled. I have to wait for the Prime Minister's permission. He is the Minister of Public Utilities.
Two things I'm going to say to that, and it might be repetitive. I've said it before. One, you look at the first term when the PNM, this administration came into power. Look at the communication levels of the ministers, and then realize that slowly but surely they all started to speak less and less. The Prime Minister then started to speak a little bit more. He had a few gaffes. He started to speak less. It reached the point where Stuart Young was the only member of government who was communicating with any sort of regularity, because he had both the portfolios of Minister of National Security and Minister of Communications. So now Minister Gonzalez is facing more or less the consequences of the gaffes, the collective inability to publicly communicate or relate to things to the public. He is facing now the results of that. And with regards to transparency, again, if you want people to take your calls seriously, you might have to overcompensate with transparency, and it just seems as though politicians don't understand or want to admit that.
Not transparent about being transparent. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, that's all.
Anyway, let's open up the phone lines now where you can join us on the conversation. 623-9376, 622-9338. The numbers are up on your screen. We have a call on the line with us from Tobago. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen. Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday to you too.
All right, I want to make two comments. One on the tragic death of the young girl Aaliyah after being flogged. We don't know the full details as to whether she was beaten to death or, maybe she was running away from being beaten and fell down some stairs. We don't know. But what should be apparent to us is, one, corporal punishment ought to be outlawed in this land. to me, it should never have been. Right? Children should never have been subjected to beatings. I think that is something that was picked up on plantation, and it is not part of anyone's culture. Right? People don't even want to beat animals. You can't even beat a dog. Why would you beat a child? 2, on the politics that we practice in this country that is getting us nowhere, this party politics, that we copied and pasted from the very people that brought some to this land as indentured servants and others as enslaved people. We've simply copied and pasted their system without modifying it to fit us, and it is not working for us. It works for them. People forget that the Democrats used to be the Republicans used to be the Democrats.
Yes.
The president has a black book wherein no matter who goes into that office, Democrat or Republican, you better get these things done. And it's not working for us. We need to do away with party politics and move into representative politics and get away from politicians, where politicians are people that talk themselves into office, kiss babies when it's time to be elected, and talk and act their way into office. Representatives work their way into office. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, caller. I really appreciate your first and second point. First point definitely leads to debate. The second point, well, I think that's a given at this point. Good morning, caller from San Fernando.
Hey, gentlemen. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to hear from you. 2 days in a row, man. Excellent.
I'm glad to see you. You on your drift down Friday, Boy Keaton, and Sean on drift up Friday.
yeah. That's how it is, you know? Unwind.
Yes. 2 things. Let me start firstly, the most insignificant, Mr. Barrett. As far as I'm concerned, when Mr. Barrett had a chance to step up to the plate when he was in that previous government, he did not. And now, trying to come with a third force, but I want him to know that there's a third force out there, and they don't vote. And let me rephrase that: we don't vote because we fed up on both sides, and there's a huge number of us out there. So that is the first point.
Yeah.
The second point, that environmental issue that you all were chatting about this morning.
Yes.
You know, that is the essence of climate change. Trying to change people's, the way people think, the way they dispose of their trash. We need to start, and I hope the local government minister and this local government reform, in addition to the funds that they are supposed to get when this property tax comes out from local government, that they would start at that level to start to have recycling in the communities at that level.
Yes.
Let me give you a quick. I don't buy plastic. I try to avoid plastic. So I buy because I have an issue with plastic for years now. So I try to buy glass as much as possible. So what I do, I have bins there, and I put my glass bottles. I have convinced some of my neighbors to get their glass bottles. They will come and they put the box, and I would put it in my bins, and I would call Carrot Glassworks, and they come and they pick it up.
Helping yourself, yeah.
I have 3 huge bins. They pick it up ever so often. You call them, they make an appointment with you, they come and they pick it up.
Yeah.
So there are things out there
that we could do.
That we can do.
Yeah.
But the leaders in the society need to understand that they have to start to implement, to put the ideas out there. I mean, I am as one person who decided I am going to make a change.
Well, caller, I want to thank you for that change, but I'm going to have to end it there because we do have other callers on the line. But thank you very much. Always good hearing from you. Have a great day and a great weekend.
Just one quick thing to add, little laws.
They are little laws. Are they?
To be enforced.
They are little laws. Anyway, we have a call on the line from Faisabad. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, and so I want to start with Vasan Bharat. In my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, Mr. Bharat would have failed the populace of Trinidad and Tobago. Because when he had a time to act, he didn't act responsibly. And I want all you to take back your mind a little bit. So there are a number of people in this country who are spent forces, who could be regarded as spent forces. Vasan Bharat, Dukaran, Winston Gypsy Peters, Trevor Sudama, you know, these fellas, Ramesh Lawrence Mirage, you know, these fellas played the politics where they could have benefit, and as soon as they benefited, they opted out. And another point I want to touch on is Mr. Fali Agustin. I will not be surprised if he would make the difference in the next general election.
Interesting.
I will not be surprised because I'm telling you something. They are gaining some traction in the East-West corridor. And if Mr. Gary Griffith should jump on board with them, I think they'd be a force to reckon with in Trinidad.
That's a very interesting point.
That is a very risky proposition.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
but very interesting nonetheless, because from what I'm hearing, the point that you're making, the former Commissioner of Police has a lot of popularity, quite a bit of support.
That is true.
Yeah, so...
Yeah. And so the other point I want to make is Dr. Rowley's position with respect to the Pegasus software. He had boasted it was bought in for national security reasons, but in my observation, since they have this thing, the murder rate went up from beyond the prison walls.
Well, I have to tell you, caller, I question,
So
how it has worked.
Clearly, it has not been purposeful for the intended purpose rather than spying on people. So I am of firm conviction it is used for ulterior motives politically.
Well, caller, you share that opinion with many others. But thank you very much for your call. Have a great day.
To be fair, there's always been electronic monitoring, and I don't think we've known any successful prosecution to come out of it.
Which makes you wonder what the Prime Minister is stating.
Right, and not just this term, but like for years, none. I don't know of any.
No way doubting that, sir. I'm
any.
just stating his reason for the purchase.
Well, yes.
Anyway, we have a call on the line with us from Pitty Valley. Good morning.
Hello, morning, Sean and Keaton, my friend.
Good morning, sir. Good to hear from you.
Keaton, do you believe Mr. Gonzal will get a report and take it, call a media conference and reveal what it is in the report without going to the Prime Minister, which is his boss, to get it sanctioned? Any Prime Minister, don't have to be Mr. Rowley, any Prime Minister, and we like to quote America, a minister get a report and just go to the media without going to Mr. Biden to sanction it?
The thing is, caller, it's not a matter of whether or not I want to believe it. I'm questioning why should that be the case as Minister of Public Utilities, under which this entire situation, it really falls under him.
Keaton, everything running a chain, even a company, even probably in
but
your
with that
state,
chain
you
of,
must have some,
with that
you just
chain,
can't take a report without and just go to the media. I don't think a minister could do that without the Prime Minister sanctioning it.
In this instance, particularly for this report, I don't see a reason why there is need to go to the Prime Minister first, other than just out of respect. But with that, as I said, we were speaking about there's a chain, but that level of bureaucracy.
It is very difficult and putting the minister in a very difficult position to just get a report, call a press conference without the Prime Minister knowing. I think it will be very
that level of bureaucracy
Now,
leads to inefficiency.
The thing is, though, I think, Pitty Valley, you have more or less stated what is reality. And what is a realistic expectation on the situation, and to think, now, with that said, could the minister do it on a technical level? I think he does have the authority, but I think you're right in the sense of very few governments in the world will a minister or a cabinet secretary or what have you, whatever the name of the post is, will independently make a decision like that. So should it be that way, though, is, I think, a fair question. Should it be that way? It does bring that into question.
I don't think it should be that way. I mean, it has always been that way, but I don't think it should be that way.
Thank you, Pitty Valley, and I think, yes, you're right with what you said there. Unfortunately, it is so.
Good morning, caller from Shigornas, who joins us on the line.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning, Professor.
Well, as I told you yesterday, everything I tell you go through one ear and come through the next. Because you had Mr. Barrett there, who talking one set of nonsense and have nothing to do with the problem. Our problem is one of governance.
Which is the problem he's highlighting. Anyway, go ahead, caller, go ahead.
It is a law and order. You get order by enforcing your laws. We enforce none. And how you have these enforced, you have a minister in each ministry who's supposed to have the ministry review their performance and produce an annual administrative report, which our present Prime Minister criticized the former one for being 4 years behind an administrative report. And he is now 7. Why didn't you put that to Mr. Barrett?
So, Colin, let me ask you a question. All that you've stated there, all those wonderful things that you've stated there, when you boil that down and you summarize it, what does it summarize to?
Governance.
Thank you very much.
That's what Lloyd Best said.
Thank you.
You enforce your laws, you review your laws, and you did it.
Right, but so the conversation that we had was not necessarily a different one from the one you wanted. We just took it from different points.
We didn't probably take it from the angle that you wanted us to take it from.
Because the lack of annual administration reports speaks to the lack of proficiency in the candidate.
Or lack of management.
Right.
Lack of governance.
Lack of governance, management. So when I say proficiency in that function as well, right, on top of others. So one of the things that he said, and I think the first caller might have agreed with him, or at least more or less agreed with him, there's an issue that we have where candidates are being voted in just because of what party they're in, as opposed to the strengths of the candidate, the capabilities of the candidate, the ability to govern of the candidate.
Well, my other question would have been whether or not we need to have constitutional reform, which will lead to election reform.
With the Constitution.
Hold on, caller. Hold on. Don't jump. Hey, caller, don't get excited and jump to conclusions. I was stating in relation to the system of elections that we have, whether or not before another party comes to power.
In this case, I actually think I think I know where Professor was going, and in this case, I agree with you. The problem here is how voters vote, not necessarily how the election
But that's
is
always,
structured.
and as pointed out by Mr. Barrett, in order to change the system, there's always been pain and pleasure. So, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, you change things around us, and you have to change things around us if you cannot change the voters' mindsets.
Yeah, I'm not sure if changing the system, if there's a quick solution.
Anyway, Professor, thank you very much.
But we do have another call.
Have a good day. We have a call on the line from Diego Martin. Sorry, Sean. Sorry.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Good morning.
Yeah. So, could I finish my thought for 30 seconds yesterday and give you the trivia question, or one, or the other?
No, go for both.
Okay,
but quickly, though.
Good. Yeah, so sorry about that. And but you all finished it off nicely this morning. It was about the Beta Monso, but its last part, if 30 people, say, from the Beta got sick right now, right? What happens from the toxicity? Will they be treated for respiratory diseases and maybe cancer?
Yes.
How will they ever know? How long is that going to take? How long will another study take with no solutions? That's one. Keaton, well, you already know the stainless steel straws. We spoke about that already. And the bamboo cutlery, which doesn't really pick up your food, but you have to try.
You really have to.
Lots of other sustainable, biodegradable things, but what happened is
it will get better
very
over time.
costly to do that here.
Yeah.
For anyone to import it. Okay, so your trick question, which is real easy. You see it every day, and I just saw it this morning.
Easy trick question.
How many CPAP workers, not in uniform, does it take to clean a strip of grass 100 feet by 4 feet?
All but one.
All
but one.
No, ask how many CPAP workers, and not how many CPAP crews.
Right, all but one. One worker will do the work.
No, I have to think, Sean. Hold on.
Yeah, you have to think, because remember, you've got walkers, you have the screen holders, you have the ones who
Fair enough. There's more than one who works.
This might be the most difficult question she's ever asked us.
No, but you've been seeing it for so long.
Yeah.
You could just take a wild guess or calculate it.
I'm going to go for a wild guess. It takes 2 to rake, 2 to cut grass, 2 to hold up the wire, and 1 to stand by the side holding the cone. I'm going to say about 7.
Sean?
I said 1.
Sean, you said 1?
Yeah, I said 1. I already said 1. I already said 1.
Your housekeeper or your gardener.
I already said 1. I said all but...
Well, both of you all are wrong. It's 12.
It's 12?
For heaven's sake, it's 12.
I
saw the first man this morning, the walker, and I thought, okay, I just have to remind him of the vine on my fence that belongs to me, so so that he doesn't chop it even though he sees the flowers on it, right? I have to do that all the time. So he whacks, that's whacker 1. Then whacker 2 comes and he whacks over what whacker 1 just did. One old guy just chops the little edges, that's 3. 2 holding the screen for the neighbor's huge truck, remember, that's parked by me. And the screen doesn't even reach the glass part. So I don't know what they're holding it up for, and no one is walking in the road. Then there's white jersey man to chop over the little edges that were just chopped. 3 women sweeping the same space, one after the next. Then sleeveless dude to cut over the same edges, that's 10. Turquoise jersey man doing nada, and green vest man shoveling, that's
Caller,
12.
thank you very much. We have another call, but...
So my answer was right. We only need 1.
Have a good day, caller. Thank you very much. Anyway, we have another call on the line with us from Diego Martin. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning to you all.
Good morning, sir. Good to hear from you.
Yes, well, I just want to have 2 quick comments concerning Mr. Vasan Bharat. He's a good gentleman. I like him a lot. But you see, he consistently refers to the UNC supporters as sycophants. And even if you have that in mind, you cannot come out and talk that. You're expecting the people to vote for you and you call them sycophants. That is a problem with him.
Yeah.
But he's a very good person. As pertaining to the report that the Prime Minister got, I would have thought he would have, probably when he sat in cabinet, he would have mentioned it to them. And then he will probably give them instruction on who wants to say something or not.
Yeah.
But see that he gave the line minister it. The line minister should have been able to say well, X, Y, and Z.
I think so as well.
If you give him the line minister, it means you're telling him, well, look, you can divulge what it is to the public.
As line minister, it is his responsibility.
Yeah.
You know?
So thank you and good morning. I have a very good weekend and safe weekend.
Have a great weekend, call. Always good hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's where we end our call-in segment. Thank you very much to all our callers.
Just want to say to Mr. Pittivali, yes. So I agree with you, but I think the issue is why have the minister announced that he also received... It's the dog and pony show that kind of makes it very weird. Because the Prime Minister already fallen into the business and announced the government got it, right?
He held a media conference at the Ministry of Public Utilities at his office.
Yeah.
And it was really to do with rainwater collection exercise. They're going to spend $7 million on that. But he was questioned about it, and at the end of the day, he's the line minister, and I understand Pittivali what he's saying. That has always been the case. Historically, that's been the case. But I mean, come on, we can't continue to live by history. You know, we have to change certain things to ensure that there is efficiency within the system.
A public relations expert should have told Cabinet. Cabinet should have been advised. They should have listened to the advice that the moment he steps out there for anything else, he's going to get asked about this. They should know this. They should have that prepared, a plan
Public
prepared
relations
for that.
experts. So we're either talking about...
Well, even the politicians themselves should know that the question is
talking
coming.
about... Are we talking about Stuart Young or Simon
No,
DeNobrega?
no, we're talking about technical experts, PR experts, mass communication experts. But Rowley himself should know, as soon as Minister Gonzalez goes out there, he's going to get hit with that question because I announced that we got the reports. So they know that Cabinet has the reports. He's going to get hit with the question. Him just saying that he has it and he can't comment about it, it would have been better if they had more than that.
Anyway, Sean, I owe you an apology. I'm sorry with respect to the caller from Shigona. It's the last call. I cut you because we had the other call on the line.
That's fine.
So, I mean, I don't know if you want to quickly make that point.
No. Although I will just say this. Diego Martin made a good point with regards to Beetham residents. We had an issue with the sewage that they were having to live by. While it might not be as bad in the immediate term, the landfill in the long term is probably just as bad, if not worse, than that sewage leak. The fumes, the smells, the pollution hitting those residents. I understand some people don't necessarily want it to be moved, but the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Also, I'd just like to point out on another note, as we were talking about politics, in the 2028 general elections, the EBC vote showed that about 30% voted for the United National Congress and about 30% voted for the People's National Movement, which means that 40% of Trinidad and Tobago's voting population did not cast a ballot. And that's a slap in the face as far as I'm concerned. That's a huge slap in the face for both political parties, for both political entities. And with that, that is why I often question whether or not now, more than ever, because I mean, how often has this been on our tongues in terms of the conversations that we've had? But now more than ever, perhaps with the times that we're in, there's a need for a third force, an alternative, which again is not based on the premise of a racial prejudice or racial narrative. I have no apologies in making that comment because that is often the case. Historically, past, present, and fingers crossed, not the future. Sean Michael Small, that's it for the week.
To be fair to Mr. Barat, folks, he did say multiple times, it's not a political party, at least not yet. But I do admire the initiative itself, and I hope that something comes out of it.
And I do believe that Mr. Barath is a good person. Almost got myself conflicted there. I do believe he's a good person. If you'd like to question him as a politician, that's entirely up to you. Very much highly opinionated. As a person, good person. As a politician, well, we'll have our thoughts and opinions on that. But for now, folks, thank you very much for all who joined us in Talking Point this morning. My name is Keaton Shaw, wishing you a very good day and a very good weekend. Yes, Sean? Michael Small?
Don't miss 10 questions later today, 10 a.m.
You should have just seen what Sean was doing.
You need to tell them that.
Anyway,
hey, let's go.
SMS, have a great weekend. And remember, today's a good day to have a good day. Bye-bye.